So, there we go. You're all being recorded. So now be on your best behaviors. And I don't see Jim Blum, but you know what? Jim Blum's birthday is coming up. He's probably already out celebrating. So, there's some anniversaries coming up. How about Bill and Maxine Sabra?
Yeah. We, on June 18th, will have been married for 50 years. 40 wonderful years together. And rather than having a big party someplace, we're actually taking our kids and grandkids down to Southern California to Universal Studios to the Harry Potter exhibit. Our son has been reading to the twins Harry Potter novels every night, and we bought him one of those double-door robes, so he sits there in his robe and reads the Harry Potter, and they're just super excited to go. So that's going to be our anniversary celebration.
Fantastic. Congratulations. You're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Well, and Linda and Richard Ruby, anniversary on the 16th. So if you talk to them, don't forget to say happy anniversary. So, Dan, I waited until you got some food in your mouth. And then said, let's bring that slide up here.
So we are wrapping up our 2 campaigns for making up for the fact that we got a pandemic and we weren't able to do fundraisers for a couple of years. And club members are being incredibly generous. I think this is going to be the largest net fundraiser in the history of the Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise. So thanks to all of you who've been a great, generous part of that, either the big-hearted donors or building the solid foundation to launch our 2nd quarter century. Those of you who have not had a chance to, please consider joining the group, and if it's all possible, helping us finish out this year and pre-funding Diana's year, so that all the fundraisers we do next year will be for the following year. Thank you very much, and those who are contributing, we'll have a nice party at Blood Vineyards.
So you're asking them to call us before we call them?
Yeah, and we want to finish this up by the end of the month, so we've got 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you who have donated up till now. Look forward to talking to the rest of you. We got some badge news.
Well, I can't remember exactly when Mike Baldus built our incredible badge box. It sits over there at all the meetings. And the podium. And the podium, and a couple of other things too. Anyway, we've been blessed on that. If you were looking for your badge this morning, the odds are about 50% chance that it wasn't where you thought it was. So we've gone through all the badges. There's 2 ways to find out where it goes. Look on the back. There's a yellow dot with the number of the slot. There's a slot for every badge and not quite a badge for every slot. So it's the number, like this one says 12 down here, but that's the one on the yellow dot that is yours. Many of you moved maybe 2 slots up or back. There is a chart on one side. It's alphabetical by numbers. So if you learned your alphabet, it's easy to find your name, and then opposite that is your slot. On the other side are the numbers 1 to 60, actually. And, the organization's is somewhat a traditional confusion. The first slots go to past presidents in the order that they serve. So Bruce is no longer in number 1, Joe Gass is, and Dan Needham's in number 2, and on down through our past presidents as they served. And then after that, it's sort of like when you came into the club, but there's imperfections in that. So besides, you wouldn't remember that anyway. So try to get your badge back in its right slot, and it'll be happy there, and there won't be any crowding or confusion.
Very good. Thank you, Rod. Thank you for volunteering and thank you for explaining that all to us. Was there any consideration to retiring the number 1 so that nobody would ever get in Bruce's slot?
Yeah.
No.
Bruce calls that death row.
Oh.
Joe Gaz calls that death row. So he's number 1.
He ain't dead. Wait.
Is that just-
No. Yeah, no, I saw him move. He blinked. Don't worry. So, our ray of sunshine, Linda Taylor. Linda Taylor,
It's on Zoom.
there you are. I know you're on Zoom and you are muted. But if you've got a moment of sunshine or a little bit of rain comes into your life, or if you find out about somebody else in the club, please share it with Linda. She's been doing a fabulous job of recognizing people. And, you know, those little bits can mean a lot. And you all know how we, oh, look at that. You all know how we love you and we want to share in all the things that happen. So, a question. Well, just recognize that if you are considering leaving the club and not renewing your membership, would you please reach out to Kathy or to me and let us know, because we're going to pay your dues come July 1st if you are still listed as active for the club. So, you know, we don't want you to go. We want you to stay. We want you to love this place, and we don't want you to miss a damn thing. But if you are kind of leaving, then it's good for us to know, because that's good economics. And speaking of saying goodbye, okay, Barbara Barney, tell us what's going on.
Well, I finally chose a club here in Olympia, and I've joined the Olympia Rotary Club. It's about 85 members. They're very involved in international projects, specifically water projects. So I've kind of already feet first into that. But I'm also was very impressed at how friendly everybody was when I would go and visit meetings. And I've been visiting meetings for all the different Rotary clubs, you know, since last fall. And they also do a lot of community service projects like the food bank and trail cleanups and stuff. So it's a good active club, and I'm looking forward to becoming involved with them.
Well,
That's it.
we're sure gonna miss you, Barbara. But we won't miss you if you don't go away. So why don't you just keep showing up from time to time and doing good things? I know that you're gonna be helping out still with financial stuff. And I know that you're interested in helping us to pass on the history of our club so that we take care of routines. And we'll be talking about that, kind of what goes on the calendar when we do what when, so that we don't lose the things that we want to do. And then Al Lustig. Now I heard, Charlie, that you were helping Al out with the last minute kind of getting things out of where he was and doing what he was doing. And I know he really appreciated it. And to the folks who have, all of us who have come and participated with him, he says hello, goodbye. If you need a pit stop when you're on your way up to Tahoe, stop in Lincoln. He's got a bathroom.
Well, I talked to him yesterday, the bathroom, the house, the garage, and he had to rent a storage space to put all his boxes that he took up there. So he's gonna have a big garage sale.
Yeah.
He has no room.
Well, it seemed like a good idea to see if it fit, right? Yeah, he was working on it. Boy, that guy did have a lot of contractor things that he collected over time. And there have been folks who have been helping him all along, and it's wonderful that he's done so. And speaking of goodbye, we're not going to see Patrick for 2 months. He had a little shindig up there. Got to see his rig. It's really awesomely cool. And he wanted four-wheel drive because he goes way out in dusty and crazy places. And then he and Ellie and of course Peanut are going to go up to dip their toes in the Arctic Ocean.
Ooh.
What the heck do you think? But that's Patrick, that's Ellie. They look happy about it, right? I wish Joe was here to see this, but you know, I was going through old photos, just took a stroll down memory lane. That's past President Joe Gazowitz and past President Catherine Graham sitting up here. I can see they're at this spot, and the bell looks the same. Joe doesn't look the same. I don't know. Anyway, there it is. Memories past the shadows of my mind. Speaking of memories, that rabbit was out there looking for the hiker. And it said, well, hell. And Charlie, you caught that before, but it was out there, it was listening for you, and I'm gonna, from what I understand, it was crickets. Nice photo, by the way. I like looking through his ears. That's pretty well set up. And talk about magic moments. How about Ryla? Oh, Kathy, you were out there.
Michael, he was in charge.
All right.
We had a good time. They had about 40 campers and 15 staff or so, and a few hungry Rotarians. And we served up a bunch of chicken, and everybody enjoyed themselves.
And Ryla is Rotary Youth Leadership Academy. How do the students get there?
The students are interviewed by Rotary clubs around the district and then chosen. A lot of them come from Interact, and a lot of them are just leaders within their own school. And so this is an opportunity for them to get some more training, to work with other kids that have leadership potential. And it's a really good program. It's been going on for years and years. And we're just happy that it was able to be held this year in person.
Where was the camp?
Camp is at Westminster Woods out on Bohemian Highway, which is a wonderful place. It's got a swimming pool and all sorts of stuff for the kids.
The
So
road course still there?
the road course is at the Alliance Redwoods next door.
Oh, yeah. And that's a 1-week opportunity for students to develop leadership and get your support to get there. How nice that is. And thank you to the folks who all was there. I saw Gabby in the photo. I saw Dave. Yep, and then Rotarians from the Rotary Club of Sebastopol were there, and looks like a nice cake. I'm sure they didn't carve that up. It does meet the current branding that we need to see, so Jerry's happy to see that. And yesterday, Anna and I staffed the table, and we had the summit. The organizations, you can see the organizations that were involved in sponsoring that, and it was a wonderful opportunity for people to see and learn about volunteerism in the community. And that's Efren Carrillo and Tim Miller. They had 3 other speakers. One didn't show, and 2 got COVID. And I'm glad they did come. Nice audience. There was, the tabling was afterwards, an opportunity for us to talk with people about volunteering, joining clubs, membership, and such things as that. And talk about magic moments. Barbara Varney was at the international conference in Houston, And look what they had up there that she sent me as a slide. You know what? We got ahead of the game in terms of organizing people here, because they're talking about Kiwanis, Lions, Optimists, Rotary, and other service organizations banding together, building their communities, strengthening the banner, if you would, of service clubs as relevant and a part of the community and interacting with each other. So they proposed a date. They said, why don't you try to do something between September 11th and 17th that's special, that pulls everybody together. Maybe we'll do a work day and we'll all get out there and, get our tools out and do something good. I got approached by a young woman who is running a new child care center up at the Garzat building, the one in the little park that we had to do with before. She says, we could use a little help up there, and so could that little pond where the ducks go. So maybe that would be something we'd like to do. I don't know. So, anybody got something special they feel grateful for that they want to share? Linda, same thing is on.
So most of you know, in January, I unexpectedly left my insurance career. And yesterday, I was extremely thankful. I've been watching my grandson Jameson on Tuesdays, which I never would have been able to do had January not happened to me. But that said, Dan was over, we were getting ready for David's debunking, and he brought Highway 12 strawberries, right? Everybody knows Highway 12. Well, I seeded my strawberry plants, and little Jameson found the strawberries. And so if you're on Facebook, Dan, you're not on Facebook, there's a video there that I've watched it a dozen times. It just warms my heart when he finds the strawberries. So check it out if you can, and I'll do something kind. So I'm very grateful for time with Jameson, and I'm grateful for Jim's help too. So thank you.
She also had these really special flowers that totally grow out of season. And what was that, Dan?
She has blooming lilacs right now. It's spectacular. It's astonishing. Mine were months ago. I don't know how she does it. She has to bring them.
The plastic.
Did you give him brownies? Because that's one way to do that.
Yes.
Anybody else with a moment of gratitude that they would like to share? Linda.
Well, I definitely have a lot of gratitude for the teachers around here. My wife just finished her 14th or 15th year of teaching and did really well. And it's been a tough year for teachers. So if you know one, someone's life. So yeah, $50 for the international fund.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
David,
Yes, sir.
I sent you a email with that.
Hold on. There's going to be a party in Ives Park on the 18th, 4 o'clock to 7 p.m. They are asking if we might show up and help to clean up. They're going to do a shout to the audience, but we don't want the two folks, Laura Hager, they want some help to put things away afterwards. So come to the party. We're going to have a table there. We're going to be looking for members, support, and connection. And do come to this party if you get a chance. So Ives Park, 18th, 4 to 7, be there. And Marty, there we go. This is an opportunity right here in town for us to do a mixer with the Rotary Club of Santa Rosa, East West, and Healdsburg. And it's a fundraiser for work in Ukraine, sending money to the Rotary clubs in Ukraine, part of that ongoing project. This is at Region Wine Center, 180 Morris Street. I'll try to get a blast out before the event. of everything that you would purchase there will go to the effort. And I'm sure they'll take straight on contributions. Why would they not? So, calendar, hikers. Wait, what's that community needs summit still doing up there? June the 20th, there's a board meeting. This will be a joint board meeting, so both boards will be meeting. That's this next week. June 21st, the Region Winery. International Committee meets in the morning. June 22nd, Redwood Empire Food Bank. Sign up through the link on the calendar and save the date for June 25th. That's Seder Day. The world will be turned upside down. I don't know what else is about that.
It's because that's the day of your defunct.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
there's gonna be one?
There's going to be one.
Is that why I was taken outside last week?
Yes, that is one.
Do you know that Jim just told me I was being taken out for a spanking?
I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's lay it on, buddy. Any announcements for the good of the order? Michael?
So, tonight at 5 o'clock will be the kickoff meeting for the fundraiser that we're gonna have on Saturday, October 8th at the Art Center. The main event, the lobster meeting. So we'll be meeting at the Global Banker conference room at 5 o'clock this evening. Anybody that can attend, please attend. I'd like to get this kicked off with a big start.
Thank you. Sorry you omitted putting that on the calendar. Any other announcements? And next week, we're going to hear from Hector Matias, it's TLC now, Child and Family Services, and our speaker for today.
So let me introduce Phoebe Golden. She's a Sonoma County native and a graduate of UC Berkeley. She has a BS in environmental science and a minor in public policy and also one in Spanish. As an undergraduate, she researched water policy and management at the Center for Law, Energy, and the Environment at Berkeley Law and co-authored 2 case studies of groundwater recharge projects. Phoebe was also a regular volunteer at Berkeley's Student Food Pantry, helping to reduce food waste and feed the university community. During her senior year, she completed an honors thesis inspired by her time studying abroad in Southern Chile, which explored the connection between social unrest and environmental conditions in that country. In her current role as Sebastopol's Civics Park / AmeriCorps Fellow, Phoebe is leading the development of the Sebastopol Climate Action Framework. So please welcome Phoebe Golden.
Introduction, Charlie. Good. The screen, hear me okay? Yep. So good morning, everyone. My name is Phoebe Golden. I'm Sebastopol Civic Park Fellow. Civic Park is an AmeriCorps program, so it's a 11-month service year, and Civic Park is specific to California. And fellows are placed with local governments to work on environmental and sort of social resilience topics. So the project I've been working on for the past about 9 months now is the Sebastopol Climate Action Framework. And this is a sort of policy document to help the city move forward in addressing climate change. And the framework is actually scheduled to come out this Friday. So you all are getting a little bit of a sneak peek today of what's going to be in the framework. So the underlying sort of motivation for the framework is in Sebastopol's desire to protect its natural environment and support community health and well-being. And that's been seen in a lot of things Sebastopol has already done. Sebastopol was the second city in the nation to require solar on new buildings, so reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. Sebastopol was also one of the first cities to join Sonoma Clean Power, which is our local electricity provider that provides really clean renewable energy. And Sebastopol debuted the first all-electric bus in Sonoma County, and it's local Route 24, and it's still subsidized by the city, so it's free to ride around town on that all-electric bus. And Sebastopol's taking these actions because we know what the alternative looks like if we're not considering our environment. We're already starting to see some of these impacts, hotter temperatures, longer and more frequent droughts, greater frequency and intensity of wildfires, and bigger and more frequent floods. And some of these are impacts that, you know, Sebastopol has seen before, like flooding that's happened forever here. But these impacts are getting worse, and they're happening more frequently with climate change. And you all know what climate change is, but just a quick review. So it's this long-term shift in the average weather pattern, and it's driven by human emissions from burning fossil fuels. And so let's take a look at what our emissions look like in Sebastopol. Pretty similar to the rest of Sonoma County, transportation is the biggest source of emissions in Sebastopol. It's about 2/3 of Sebastopol's emissions. Building energy use is the second biggest category. So that includes mostly from natural gas use within the home. So your hot water heater, natural gas, your stove, your home heating system. All of those are big energy users. And then solid waste is another smaller category. That's mainly from when organic waste goes to the landfill, it rots in there and produces methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas. And then just a tiny amount is water and wastewater. And so what's shown here is a comparison between 2010 and 2018. So you can see that there has been a reduction in emissions over that period. And since 1990, there's been about an 8% reduction overall in Sebastopol's greenhouse gas emissions. This is what's called in the climate action field a activity-based inventory. So it's looking at the major sources of emissions that occur within Sebastopol's boundaries. And another way of looking at emissions is at the household level. So this is looking at the emissions from everything that you use in your life. So that includes maybe the couch you bought that came from China. Those emissions weren't created in Sebastopol, but producing the couch in China used water, used energy to power that factory. And so those created emissions. And that's what a consumption-based emission inventory tries to capture. And so you can see here there's emissions from food choices and home furnishings, large appliances. And those are things that contribute to emissions, but they're not as easy for the city to impact. The city can't tell you what kind of food you should be eating or how much clothing you should buy. So these are emissions that a lot of them require personal action to impact. And Sebastopol is already doing a good job of that. You can see at the top, the average emissions for a Sebastopol household is about 38.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And the California average is about 45. So Sebastopol is already doing well there. We know that we can reduce these emissions more. It's just a matter of taking some additional action. And Sebastopol City has recognized the need to act on this. In 2019, they adopted a climate emergency resolution. That resolution set the goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. And carbon neutrality means reducing emissions to the point where our natural environment can absorb the rest of the emissions. So through sort of natural processes like photosynthesis, plants take in carbon dioxide and they store it inside them, and they store it in the soil. And so we can use that sort of natural process to balance out the remaining emissions. And then in 2020, City Council created the Climate Action Committee. So that's a all-volunteer committee that advises the City Council on climate issues. And it meets on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 3:30 on Zoom. Those are public meetings. And so the climate action framework is sort of the next step in Sebastopol's climate actions. As you all know, the mandatory solar ordinance, the resolution. There was also a regional climate action plan in 2016. And so this framework is really the next step in moving the city forward and figuring out what additional actions the city can take. And this is what the development process for the framework looked like. Started in late fall of last year. We had a community engagement strategy developed early on to figure out how we were going to get community members involved in this project. And there was a kickoff meeting in early February, tabling at the farmers market and a couple other locations, online survey, presentations. Would have come and spoke to this group earlier on, but you guys were all booked up. So now's your time to get involved. And now we're in June. There's a draft coming out this Friday, and then scheduled to be presented to City Council in July. So what is in the framework? There is a review of some of those past actions that the city has taken, including the solar ordinance, but there's also a lot more. There are goals for the future, and there's opportunities for additional action. So both for the city, what other things the city can do, but then there's also some callouts for residents. If you all are interested in taking additional action, there's some pointers in there. And it's also establishing a process for moving forward. So how are these climate actions going to be evaluated? Who's going to be responsible for that? And how are we going to move forward on this topic? What is not in the framework is a commitment to specific actions. There's the potential actions are included in the appendix, but they all need some additional review. They need additional community input. So anything you see in there is not sort of confirmed to occur. It's all just a list of opportunities. And the framework is organized around these 6 action areas. So each of those things listed on the previous slide, there's content in each of these 6 areas. So transportation, as I mentioned, transportation is the biggest source of emissions in Sebastopol. So looking at how we can reduce those emissions, and the sort of goal is to first prioritize active and public transportation. So walking or biking instead of using a car or taking public transportation. And then for the trips that can't be accomplished by walking or biking or public transit, switching to electric vehicles. And a big key there is having more charging stations. Currently there's 4 in Sebastopol, and that's great for people who are coming through town, but we also need more chargers at workplaces so people can charge while they're at work. Apartment complexes are another area where we're needing some additional charging stations there to support the transition to electric vehicles. So that's what we're looking at in the transportation sector. Sustainable land use is also really key to reducing emissions in the transportation sector, because when housing is located close to places that people need to go every day, then they're able to walk or bike more easily. But when housing is located really far from jobs and schools, people are more likely to get in a car and create more emissions that way. So Sebastopol has already sort of focused on having a more sustainable growth pattern. There's adopted urban growth boundaries so that the city isn't spreading out into the laguna. But there's some additional considerations that we can take there to try and make sure that everyone is located ideally within a 15-minute walk or bike of everywhere they need to go. And then buildings and clean energy, that's where we're looking at how we can make our homes healthier, and by transitioning to electric appliances and away from natural gas. Natural gas is primarily made of methane, which is a greenhouse gas about 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period. So it's a really powerful greenhouse gas, and it's emitted not only when you use it in your homes, but also the distribution system that brings natural gas to your house is really weak. And so there's a lot of energy that's wasted there, and also a lot of emissions that are created in that pipeline system. So looking at how we can transition our homes to all electric, the state is moving towards all electric in building codes. So that's for new housing. It's going to be moving that direction in the next couple of years. But in Sebastopol, we have a lot of older units. So the challenge there is retrofitting those older units to be more sustainable, healthier, because it's also better for indoor air quality when you're not burning fossil fuels inside your home. And also, a lot of times it's less expensive to have it be all electric rather than mixed fuel. And then in the consumption and waste category, again, we're looking at those landfill emissions that are produced when we send organic waste to the landfill. So you're making sure that your yard clippings, your compost, all of that is going into the green bin so it can be composted rather than going to the landfill. And another element of that consumption and waste is thinking back to those consumption-based emissions and thinking about how we purchase products, and if we're purchasing them, and only having them for a short period of time and then throwing them out, or if we're buying things that we're going to reuse multiple times, mending them when they need them, passing them on to someone else when we don't need them anymore, and thinking about how we can create a more circular economy in that sense, that not as many resources are being wasted. And then the community section is thinking about how we can involve everyone in this process, because as we saw, a lot of the emissions can't be reduced by city action alone, and we need to have community involvement and action as well. And we also really want to have you all involved in designing the solutions that the city does take, so that everyone is involved and has their voice heard. And then in the city operations and leadership category, thinking about how the city can incorporate these climate considerations into other policy decisions. So the general plan update, the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, those sort of long range planning, as well as making city facilities more sustainable and getting them to net zero as well. And the two sort of overall focuses of the framework are mitigation, so reducing emissions, and then also adaptation, which we talked much about, which is preparing for those impacts I talked about at the beginning. And because we know that even with additional action, we already put so many emissions into the atmosphere that we're going to see some additional impacts no matter what. So we need to be prepared for those, and thinking about how we can make sure homes are prepared, make sure businesses are prepared, and that's another element of the framework. So in terms of the next steps for the framework, so there'll be a public review draft out on June 17th, this Friday, and there's some flyers over there if you want to get the link to the framework webpage, QR code, and learn more about how you can get involved in that. And there'll be a comment period open until July 7th. So you can, once the framework's up on the city website, you can take a look at it. You can send an email, the email up on the screen in a minute, or you can drop off your comment at City Hall. And then sometime in late July, probably, the framework will be presented to the City Council for adoption. And then after that, it'll be mostly up to the Climate Action Committee to evaluate some of the actions that are in an appendix to the framework and decide which ones they want to recommend onto the City Council for adoption and implementation. So the big opportunity to get involved now, or at least it will be on Friday, is to review and comment on the framework and think about whether the document is sort of meeting what you see as the biggest needs for climate action Sebastopol. Is there anything else you want to see included in it? Is there anything you want to see changed? Besides that, you can sign up for the city's climate issues email list to get updates when there's other actions moving forward. And you can find that on the framework webpage, which is right there. Scan that QR code if anyone has a phone on them. And then there's also an opportunity to get more involved with the Climate Action Committee. So those are public meetings on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month on Zoom currently. And so you can attend those meetings and seek a public comment if there's something that you want to weigh in on. There's also the opportunity to get more involved in the working groups of the committee, and those are meetings that happen offline to dig into more specific topics, and then those ideas are presented to the full committee later on. So if you want to get more involved in thinking about what climate actions you want to see in Sebastopol, you can contact the Climate Action Committee email address there and get involved in one of those working groups. And then I just wanted to leave you all with some personal actions you can take if you're feeling inspired about climate action. One of the most impactful changes you can make is just trying to drive your car less. And I know that can be challenging depending on where you're trying to go, but if it is a short trip where there's sidewalk or bike lane available, if you can walk or bike or take public transit, that has a big impact. You can also consider switching to an electric vehicle for your next car. These have come a long way, but they're not new technology anymore. So there's cars that are have a really great range, and there are a lot of charging stations available. And there's some great tools out there to help you map out your trip if you're concerned about it and figure out where all those chargers are ahead of time. And then if you know you're going to be replacing your water heater soon or your HVAC system, it's a good time to start thinking about replacing that with an electric alternative. So a heat pump is a electric appliance that works sort of like a refrigerator in reverse. So it's taking the heat from outside the building and transferring it inside if you're using it for a home heater, and then it can also work in the other way to cool your home. And so it's a super efficient technology, and a lot of times it's a lot cheaper than a gas heater. And there's also rebates available for heat pump water heaters. I'll get to that in a minute. And then if you're looking to get more prepared for wildfire or flooding events, the Sebastopol Map Your Neighborhood program is a really awesome program that is really focused on building neighborhood connections to increase preparedness for those kind of events and really any kind of natural disaster or hazard that you might face. And so you can find information about that on the city webpage. You might also consider upgrading to Evergreen. That's Sonoma Clean Power's 100% local renewable energy option. So if you want to support that local renewable energy, their Clean Start program is about 92% carbon free, and Evergreen is 100% local renewable from solar and geothermal at the geysers. And then finally, just rethinking your waste, making sure that you're composting everything, all the green materials you can compost, and reducing and reusing. So just a final few resources. The carbon footprint calculator there is a really great tool if you want to understand more what your household level emissions look like and think about how you could reduce them. And then the switches on site at the bottom is a great resource if you are thinking about switching to an electric appliance. You want to see what rebates are available. You can go to that site, put in your zip code, and it'll tell you all of the incentives and offers that are around. All right, so that's it for me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
So does this mean in the future new homes won't be does
does this mean in the future the new homes won't have Viking or, with gas ranges?
So it's not a current policy, and the current state building code is sort of incentivizing folks to go in the all electric direction, because it is cheaper when building a new house to only put in electric rather than putting electric and gas. It's sort of anticipated that in the next couple of years, yes, it would go to the all electric.
Existing will be grandfathered?
The question was whether existing buildings would be grandfathered in, and yes, currently that if there was a building code change, it would not apply. Usually it would apply to major remodels, but not to existing buildings. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Can you give us an update on the availability of tax credits for batteries installed at home?
That is a great question. I do not have the answer to it. Apologies.
Well, I can tell you, having called around I see these ads about, oh, you get a battery for your solar system, and you call them, and all they want to do is sell you panels, and the battery is an afterthought. And when I call and say, all I want, I already have solar, all I want are the batteries, they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I would recommend talking to the Sonoma County Energy and Sustainability Division. If you haven't already, they have free consultations for solar and battery. That could be a good resource.
Terry Kelly, I think, knows the answer to that, but before he answers it, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So most electricity is generated by burning fossil fuel. And so how does that enter into this equation of using electric vehicles, which ultimately come from burning fossil fuel? Currently, of course, there's wind and solar that we would like to transfer to, but how does that factor in?
Yeah, good question. So Sebastopol, as I mentioned, is part of Sonoma Clean Power. That's our local electricity provider. And actually, 93% of their electricity is carbon free. So it does not come from burning fossil fuels. That's their standard Clean Start program. It is mostly from renewables currently. If you upgrade to the Evergreen program, it's 100% renewable, about half solar, half geothermal energy. So actually in Sonoma County, we're in a really good place to transition to all electric because it's mostly not coming from fossil fuels.
But that's not countrywide.
Correct. Yeah, so the Sonoma Clean Power is what's called a community choice aggregator. And that model of electricity provision is really spreading across California. So we've got Sonoma Clean Power, we've got Marin Clean Energy, there's programs in Southern California as well. And those groups are a lot of times specifically formed to provide more renewable electricity to customers. And so it is a model that's spreading, but you're correct that in other parts of the country, it's not as common.
So Sonoma Clean Power has a advanced energy center, which is an education center for those looking at going to alternative uses of power or appliances. So if you're thinking of that, a concern or how to do that, go see them. The progression and development of conductive heating for cooking with is gone leaps and bounds. And it's like cooking with gas. It just all this has a price point that's an entry. Sonoma Clean Power has had, I should still have, a $10,000 no interest loan for however long you need to be to help finance some of these things. We went mini splits and a hot heat pump water heater this last summer, and it's wonderful. The hot water doesn't fade. It doesn't get warm if there's electric. It's really a worthwhile investment. And when money was cheap the last 2 years, not anymore, we put solar on the year before, and that helps drive these two items with everything else. It's an amazing technology. It works, and I'd encourage you to look at it, or I'll give you a tour sometime.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing about the Advanced Energy Center. That is an amazing resource. And I also wanted to mention that if you're skeptical about leaving your gas stove, I was also a skeptic. I'm a big cook. But the Advanced Energy Center lets you rent out a single induction burner. So if you want to test out an induction cooktop, it's totally different from a typical electric stove, and they're really impressive. So you can rent one out there free to try out that technology.
Thank you so much, Phoebe, for your time with us today. As you know, we have made a donation to a local school, 71 books that are focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're going to inscribe one of those books with your name in honor of your spending time with us today. Love the work you're doing and grateful for the work you're doing. And let's go solar, guys. Let's get there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Open bluffing.
So a priest, a Lutheran minister, and a rabbit walk into a bar. Rabbit says, "I think I'm here because of autocorrect."
Okay, done. How about that? Yeah, take us on out of here. Bill Sauber. Happy trails to you. Until we meet again. Happy trails to you. We smile.